Hello, traders. Welcome to Empire Algorithmic Trading's daily Vwapvision stock talk.
I'm Matt, he's JC, and we use the VWAP in order to break down the stock market, its trends, and also some of our favorite stocks and how they're performing comparatively.
So sit back, relax, and let's talk. Let's talk some stock.
Let's stock some talks, baby.
Let's talk some talks. Hey, happy Sunday, Matt. How you doing?
Doing well, buddy. Happy Sunday.
How was the week, man? Was it pretty good for you?
It was a nice week. I got to do a little bit of traveling, and so apologize for not being there for your Thursday videos, but back for the weekend, ready for the next week. How about for you?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was nice and quiet. Didn't really yeah, it is what it is. I kind of enjoy watching the market when I'm out of it, and it's kind of selling off a little bit. So that's always fun for me. But for the most part, I've got a ticket to these Players Championship on Sunday. So my week hopefully
Yeah.
goes quite fast for that. So this week was just kind of a holding period. And just kind of going to go watch some of the best players in the world play at TP Sawgrass. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That'll
But
be
in the
so much fun.
meantime, yeah, it is. It's gonna be a blast. I love golf tournaments. They're super exciting. You hear roars all over the course, and they're just so good. It's just so fun watching them play. They're so good. So I'm really looking forward to that. So it's going to be a fun week. In the meantime, though, we've got some stuff to look at with the market. It was quite the interesting day. So let me see if I can get my screen shared here. And so let's just take a look. We're going to start off with the S&P 500.
All right.
As you can see, the red zone, we started here. Now, all these lines on here are a couple of spots that I took a look at that I think are kind of important. So this red line here is what I'm thinking. This low right here is quite important. If this holds, we should be able to kind of stand the ground here, right? We want to see some stabilization, which we're starting to see, which is very good, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But for the meantime, if we get a break of this low, then I think we have a confirmed change in direction. Right now, we have a trend that is broke. We've had two consecutive failed new highs. And then we just need this spot to hold because you want to look for the smallest correction, the previous minor correction, I should say, before the high was hit. So you've got the trend break, and then this is the minor correction right here. So I'm kind of hanging my head on that. It also coincides with a couple of areas. The traditional 200-day moving average, we generally don't follow. We like to follow volume weighted average prices, but the 200-day moving average is right here. The 200 bar VWAP is right here. Plus, we have some VWAPs from some previous highs. Now, that's what I always like to look for support. So you have this little mini sell-off right here. This VWAP from right here is located here. Now, as you can see, it provided support until that trend broke. Now, that was kind of coinciding with this trend line a little bit. So not a surprise to see that break. What we want to see is this provide a little support here, which when you zoom in, it pretty much did on Friday. So that's why I feel a little bit better about Friday's rally than I did Wednesday's rally. So I think we're going to see a little bit of continuation going into early next week. Whether or not that holds is going to be anybody's guess because we have the upper VWAP, which is this gold line up here. So that kind of is the lay of the land of where we're at as far as big picture with the indexes. This blue line doesn't hold, then we're looking at this little spot way down here, which is down around 5,500. If that doesn't hold, then we're talking way down here in the 5,000 levels. So we've got a little bit of support below. We do have an index that is sold off quite a bit, so it wouldn't surprise me to see at least stocks settle down a little bit here. But sellers are in control. So it doesn't, any expectation that I have can be quickly out the window just with one simple down day tomorrow. So we want this low to hold and we want to see a move up into the VWAP. Once we get that move into the VWAP, we want to see some more action above that. That's when we're going to start wanting to take some action and see some trades. In the meantime, we're just looking for support. We're looking for institutions to come in and buy, and you usually see that around VWAPs. So let's just take a look at a couple other indexes real quick, and then we'll get into some the more individual stocks. You ready, Matt?
Well, and real quick before we jump, I do also want to note how much volume we saw there on Friday too. That's usually a pretty good indicator when you see a very big swing like that, a big positive push with a lot of volume behind it.
Absolutely. It was that's another reason why I'm a little excited about Wednesday's trade. Even though it was a really bullish, nice to see it right at support, shoot off of that. Volume just wasn't there. And it followed up with, again, higher volume sell off. But this is a pretty bullish one. It opened low, opened below the previous day's close. So it gapped down, sold off hard, and then rallied into the day. And it overcame a lot of yesterday's selling, a lot of Thursday's selling. So that's a very bullish, that's called a piercing pattern. It pierces into the very next day. Oftentimes you will see continuation buying, particularly since it was on a Friday. A lot of people are looking at, and it's probably going to be licking their chops. Again, we are in a red zone. Sellers are in control, so they just might be licking their chops to get out as well, because
Right.
we've got some overhead resistance. We have this blue line now, which is broken support, so that's a little resistance. And then we have the VWAP from the high. So there is some work to do, but it's nice to see money coming in, particularly at these two important junctures with a 200-day moving average, this previous low here, which I think is very important, and then the longer term VWAP from this high. So there's a lot of action going on, and it's quite exciting to see. And particularly when we're going to step over to the NASDAQ, you kind of see the same thing. A little bit of a longer term. It's trading a little bit further below its 200-day moving average, but it is kind of putting up a fight between these two VWAPs. And so I think that's important to see buyers coming in and starting to step up, because that's a pretty significant haircut for the NASDAQ. It was trying two failed breakouts and then a pretty good hit. So it could just be oversold. It could just be a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a dead cat bounce is what they want to call that. But until we start seeing some action above the volume weighted, the all-time high VWAP, we're not going to get too excited about it. So again, it's good to see those buyers coming in, but who knows what it means for the future. But we're just paying close attention to that. Same thing with the small caps. Now, what's interesting is I usually like to use VWAPs from highs. Those are good, but I also like to use the VWAPs from the lows, just in case, and just for secondary. And it happens that the VWAP from this low is right there. So this is also an important point. So you've got the S&P at an important support level. The NASDAQ is bouncing right in between support levels. And the small caps, which have been selling off hard since mid-November, they're starting to find support at an important level as well. So you've got those confluence of things, and the same thing with the mid caps. The mid caps have the similar pattern where this VWAP is right there, right? So it's telling you, hey, buyers are starting to come in because we're starting to hit some average prices. Same thing with the bonds. The bonds are kind of holding up, which is exactly what we want to see. The concern with bonds that we're going to be looking for is if they continue to rally, that might be putting pressure on the Fed to lower interest rates, because they're saying, hey, listen, we're concerned about growth moving forward. We think interest rates are going to have to move lower. The Federal Reserve is standing pat. They're saying we aren't quite sure if we're going to be continuing to lower interest rates. So the market might be telling the Federal Reserve, hey, we've got an issue here. Similar to what they were doing back in 2022 when they started selling off hard, and the Federal Reserve was holding pat, saying that inflation was transitory. So it's got some competing measures going on there with the Federal Reserve and the bond market. But in the meantime, it's all just a wait and see game because you have the administration and the tariffs coming into play as well. So how is that going to affect the consumer moving forward? How is that going to affect inflation moving forward? How is that going to affect trade? Just overall trade, are we going to start seeing continued escalation from our partners? So there's a lot of uncertainty. And as we've talked about before, uncertainty is just death for the market, because it's hard for me. I've felt it. I've really cut back on my spending simply because I'm not sure what's going to happen next. And it's hard for me if I'm just buying groceries and I'm just going to spend some fun money. How do we expect someone that's investing tens of millions of dollars in new equipment or a new plant, to be able to have that visibility, and to be able to put that type of money down. So that is a concern. And I think that's why we're seeing the Trump slump, per se. You saw the Trump bump because of the traditional expectation that, hey, a Republican is coming into into the office, and so that means deregulation and lower taxes is good for stocks, and that's not always the
Everybody's going to
case.
make money.
Yeah, right. That's not always the case. If you look back historically, if you look seriously, if you look back historically, George Bush's decade or 8 years were not good for equities, right? Barack Obama was spectacular. Those years were quite well. Same thing with Donald Trump. His 4 years were mired with volatility. I mean, 2020 with the pandemic wasn't good, but everyone forgets about 2018. 2018 was a really rough year for stocks. It was high volatility. But what did we have in 2018? Let's see. We had a Fed that had been raising interest rates. We had a lot of uncertainty. We had rising tariffs and particular trade wars, and we had a worried consumer. So it's no surprise we're seeing the same thing happen today that happened in 2018, and that continued throughout the year. There was a pretty significant rally halfway through 2018, but it's almost a mirror image to what happened back then. So there are some headwinds that we do have to worry about, and that's just kind of the overall picture of where we're at. That provides a little bit of context for what we're seeing. However, the market is a discounting mechanism, right? It's always looking forward. Excuse me. All the news is already baked in. That's why the market's been selling off for 3 weeks already. Some of the equities, like the small caps, have been selling off pretty much right after Donald Trump got elected. So all of this news that a lot of people are talking about is already baked in. So what's going to happen next? What's going to be 9 months down the road, 8 months down the road? That's what the market is starting to price in. And that's exactly why we're starting to see a lot of leading stocks that have been absolutely crushed find some support at their VWAPs and their long-term VWAPs too. So let's just take a look at a couple of those just real quick. And stop me if I'm going too fast. Stop me if you have any questions, Matt. Palantir Technologies, if you take a look, it went on a wicked tear, but it seems to have just stabilized. It's just found a floor. Now, why is that? Because right at this massive gap up, when it started taking off, this is where the VWAP is. And so is that going to hold? I don't know. Right now, it's looking like it is, right? So what we're going to do is that's what we're looking for. We're excited about that. We want to see leading stocks like Palantir that have been leading the market higher find buyers after their big sell-offs. Same thing with Vistra. Same thing. It's finding support at a long-term VWAP right after this little mini correction. It broke out, kind of found a little bit of support at it, undercut it, and then once again, it's finding a little bit of support. Continued. It's a pretty wicked sell-off, right? It went from 200 down to 114. But that's exactly what we're looking for. That's what we want. We want to see those old leaders. We want to see the stocks that are still making significant money, that have been sold off, that have been crushed, started to get buy-in, because all the institutions that sold out up here, they're licking their chops down here. So it's good to see. It's good to see the stock starting to find some support. So that's what we wanted to see. Same thing, and it's a kind of across the board. Constellation Energy, Netflix, for example, NRG Energy, GE Vernova, Axon Enterprises. Now, Axon's an interesting one, but I just thought it was cool because it's been selling off hard, but it seems to have found a bottom as well. And GE Vernova, I just want to bring this up just again real quick. This one's an interesting one because it's got a little bit of support here. I'm going to zoom in on this. Now, when you look back at this one, this VWAP from this little correction, this little breakout is right here at this blue line. So it looks like it's finding support there, looking very good. And then it just sells off a little bit, right? Well, now look where it's finding support. It's got the little spinning arrow right there. That means there's a little bit of uncertainty in the market. The bulls and the bears are kind of fighting it out hard, and that usually happens quite a bit right around VWAPs because they are literally fighting it out. So people are coming in to buy it just as quick as people are selling it. So it's kind of good to see that action. It's particularly around two bunched up VWAPs. Other than that, I call this the granddaddy VWAP, and it's from its IPO. Historically, stocks will tend to bottom out at those points as well. So if this doesn't hold, I would expect to see that long-term VWAP hold. Then if that doesn't hold, it tends to become a shorting opportunity. So it's interesting just to kind of watch these play out. Of course, the upper VWAP that we're going to be looking for, the resistance is up here. And so it's got a lot of work to do before. However, aggressive investors, if you wanted to trade off of that, you most certainly can. But our model is set up for a little bit more conservative confirmation of the sellers are all wrung out and we've got a new trend starting. So that's kind of where we're looking at. Just a couple more to get through here, Matt.
No, it's great.
Data, which did round trip, right? It had a really nice breakout right as the market started to top out. It knocked it right back down. But as you can see, it's finding support right at its VWAP from its previous base. A lot of the other stocks, which is kind of similar to Palantir also as well. And so a lot of the other stocks just got crushed. Axon just went right through its base, right? Carvana, which we're going to look at, I think it went right through. It's at a longer term. There was Kava, right? It did the same thing. It went right through. So there's a couple of different scenarios we're looking at. These are the really exciting ones because they're going to be closer to their highs. So if the market does find a bottom, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Data hitting new highs before the S&P 500 is breaking into new high ground. So let's just continue to watch. Having said that, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Data back down at 20 if we end up in a bear market. So that's why I'm not really putting anything in on this right now, but it is exciting to see.
And definitely something to watch.
Something to watch for sure. Data has been a big one. Carvana, yeah, here's an example, right? It broke right through its previous breakout, right through its previous base, and it's finding support at this VWAP from this massive gap up. So that's where you want to set your anchors if you're doing anchored VWAPs. Right before sell-offs at the previous highs or right after important gaps. Those are usually where institutions are going to come in and step up and support the stock. So you can see that going on very well in Broadcom. Its VWAP from its earnings gap up back in June is providing pretty clear support.
Yeah.
It's sold off hard and then it just found a floor there. So whether that holds or not is anybody's guess, but right now it's looking really good. And like I said, when you see all of that line up, leading stocks finding support, plus the indexes are all at the same spot, it's all part of the cycle and is exactly how phases go. So a couple more, you've got Duolingo, just finding a floor right at this. Now, if you took that VWAP away, you would be looking at it going, why is that stopping right there, right? Yeah. So the VWAPs are where you can visually see where the buyers are going to be. And it's quite exciting. It's why we use it. It also tells you where the sellers are going to be, which is why we like to keep an eye on that upper VWAP. Cal-Maine Foods sold off hard, finding buyers right at its VWAP. And I also want to take a look at Apple. Apple is an interesting one because it's finding some support at a resistance level where it was. So this is the VWAP from this high here. It was finding resistance at it, and now it's finding a little bit of support. And it is also finding support at its previous all-time high VWAP on the way down as well. So it did flash a buy signal here. But it's been kind of churning a little bit, but it's holding up exceedingly well. So if the market does continue to move higher, it would not surprise me at all to see Apple be the leader for the NASDAQ moving forward as well.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's let me just stop sharing. So that's it, man. That's where we're at for this week. Moving forward, we just want to see some buyers continue to support the market here. Like I said, we're at some very vital points. If it fails here, we could be in for a pretty significant drop. So it all depends a lot on the Trump administration and what happens, I think, with trade. Jerome Powell on Friday was very upbeat about the economy. He didn't sound worried, and so that, of course, lit stocks up. So whenever the Fed is saying, hey, man, we're doing all right, the market tends to listen, right? So I have watched the Federal Reserve ignite rallies, and I've watched the Federal Reserve kill rallies. So they very well could have stepped in on Friday and just created it just a perfect timing, right? The stock saw off hard right at VWAPs. Jerome Powell comes in and says, hey, we're still looking okay. We're still feeling confident about the future, but we are holding steady on any interest rate changes. So that's it for the week. Matt, what do you got for us?
Well, I think that is absolutely fantastic. And it's really fun to have that energy. It's almost like a rubber band being pulled back. and it feels like we've got all of this potential energy built up, ready to just snap forward. Like you said, there's a chance the rubber band breaks and we keep falling, but there's a chance that that launches the S&P into a new direction and chasing some new highs with that, which would be fantastic for us to see. So,
Yep. All right. Well, where can everybody see us there, Maddie?
well, guys, for all of our free stock talks like this, please subscribe here on our YouTube. Click the subscribe, click the like, share it with all your friends. We do the weekly stock talk breakdowns of what happened throughout the week and what we're excited for the next week. But we also do a daily stock talk as well, where you can kind of see what's happened in the market, what some of the major winners and losers are doing, and just kind of a general temperature check of everything. So that is here on YouTube. Otherwise, follow us on all social medias, Facebook, Instagram. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, and also Blue Sky. For more information on who we are and what we do, visit our website, Vwapvision.com. And for all of you who want to get access to our algorithmic trading picks, now these are the ones that our algorithm tell us are ready to break out or are ready to potentially sell off. So for access for that, subscribe on our Patreon, patreon.com/Empire Algorithmic Trading. And as always, JC, with a big week ahead of us, happy trading.
Happy trading, my friend. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
See you, bud.
All right. Bye.